Do you think that there are a lot of marriage-minded, qualified men walking around?
Do I think there's a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say around 70 to 80% of men
Hell
are
no.
living, or I would say 70 to 80% of men, everything that they do, every step that they take, every decision that they make is so that they can build stability enough and pursue a woman to create a family.
80% of men are walking
I would
around.
say that's the bottom line to the breath that's in their lungs. And I would say women, on the other hand, is the opposite. They're pursuing their careers, the opportunities, video games for the sake of their own pleasures and individual stability.
Mhm.
And then later, you know what I'm saying, they may try to find a man that can fit or might be able to accept them. But men is coming into this thing trying to build a kingdom so he can have a legacy, so he can have a family, a bloodline. That's
Okay,
the whole reason why he's going out here doing what he got to do, busting his back and busting his ass 10, 20 years, 30 years, so he can go and see his little ones come in and have a lifestyle that he probably never had when he was a child.
if you had a daughter, what advice would you give her? Let's just say she's in her 20s. Would you tell her to be positioning herself for marriage? Um, would you say she needs to do what she has a passion for, what she like what would that look like in the real world for you if you had a daughter that was in her
If I
20s?
had a daughter, she would be raised to be positioning herself for marriage in her early 20s.
Okay, what does that look like?
It would be, well, she's obviously, I would say any woman that's decent looking and fit are going to have a high chance of attracting a lot of options in their early 20s by default. So I would say capitalize on the a particular option. You know, get your vetting assistance from yours truly, your father, and get married as soon as possible. If this man wants to marry you, don't push him off like a lot of these women that's in their early 20s at the top peak of their value, wanted to play around with fire, want to play around with pursuing their opportunities in their careers, and then ending up left over and at the wall. I would tell my daughter to make sure she capitalize on building with a man young and early.
And then what if she comes to you and says that she doesn't see any qualified suitors? Then how would
I
you
would say that's
respond to that?
false because you don't have the capability of being able to see that. That's why I'm here. If you have somebody that's pursuing you, you need to involve me in the vetting process to be able to make to use the correct discernment to deem whether any of these guys that are vetting now or trying to vet you out is actually a suitable mate.
Okay, and if a woman father wasn't present in her life or she didn't have any male figure, what advice would you give to her?
She would try to go to an older brother, a mentor, maybe a pastor, somebody, a spiritual leader, somebody that she could trust in, some male figure that give her the right oversight and understanding of how the male mentality works out here. So she can have an understanding of what his intentions are. I honestly don't think women have enough discernment accurately to be able to determine whether what a man wants, and they don't even have the emotional intelligence and endurance to be able to accept the truth from a man. Complete honesty. It's a lot of guys that just don't want to be straightforward and honest with women for the sake of not hurting their feelings.
Okay, gentlemen, do you guys agree with Darwin? Do you think his approach makes sense? Or would you say something else different when it comes to how what you would tell your daughters or the advice that he would be given?
I,
Uh,
I agree with his approach as far as what he'll tell his daughter. But after they got past 25, they did not have anybody that looked like they was gonna be married. I would say continue to chase your dreams because you may have to support yourself. So you gonna have to realistically continue in that way. But I would encourage them to do that. I'd really disagree with that 80% number. I don't think 80% of men is looking to get married right now. Like the single men, 80% of them, bro. But I could be biased because of the men that I was around. Because the men that I knew, the moment they decided to get married, they could have got married the next day. They had women around them that they had been dating or vetting or long term dating, could have got married the next day.
Are we saying whether they have it on their mind? I'm speaking to that specifically. A lot of guys I talk to, watch my content, they have it on their
I,
mind.
I agree with you because that's a niche segment. I would say the majority of the men that be in these chats probably like maybe 80% of these men, but this ain't the entire representation of, you know what I'm saying, of how black, like the people who be in these chats usually care about relationships, maybe looking for tips on relationships, in a relationship, trying to figure something out, maybe trying to figure out how to vet because they just got out of a relationship looking for their next. So I say 80% of these chats. But in the general populace of men, I think that number is like 40.
Well, I
Maybe.
will say to your point
So
that
wait,
there may
so
be some type of fear behind it of getting married due to the circumstances in the courts. But the bottom line to I think any man's purpose and goals, it's not only to get on his purpose and his passion and the work to create stability, but it's still it's even amidst the behavior that women are portraying in society, men are still willing to be in a relationship with these women and procreate with these women, even though we're getting dragged through in the mud and have this emasculation type thing going on. We still, and like I'm going to use Sweeney words, in the belly of the beast, in the Western culture, probably the worst part when you talk about the dating market, still sitting here trying to go work and find a woman and have a family.
So to
So
kind of
you
fine
want
tune,
your
hold on real quick, to fine tune the numbers, right? So we can put some facts to it. Roughly about 55% of men, of single men are desiring marriage, and about 50% of women are desiring marriage. But to Bruiser's credit, I would argue that the men who are seeking marriage are more marriage minded than the women when it comes to how they move and how they operate in society. Like they're more likely, because the mindset is that they're doing what they're doing to make themselves more suitable to the women that they want to get, versus women, when they go out there and they grind, they prepare themselves to just be able to sustain themselves, whereas more men are more likely to prepare themselves to sustain the family or the women that they choose
And
out
once
of the people who are marriage minded.
once the man get his mindset, he won't even stop. Specifically, the man here in America, they won't even stop here, knowing that the dating market is so polluted the way it is with the women we have to deal with. They are willing to travel abroad and risk, having to go through the degree of difficulty of learning a culture and a different language to still get to that bottom line. The bottom line ain't never going nowhere. We're just figuring out workarounds to it. And then if we can't figure out a working around with it, we just gonna keep our peace and we're gonna just be alone. We're gonna toss them $40, $50, get some head every now and then.
All right, let's go get Casey in there real quick because she's trying to get in there. Then we'll go to Trey.
So what it's sounding like, because you said you want your daughter to go ahead and choose the man that's trying to marry her in her early 20s, choose him instead of looking for other options or choosing a better suitor. You want your daughter to be fully dependent on a man, because in her early 20s, that doesn't give her much time to pursue tenure in a career. So based upon that thinking, you expect your daughter to be fully committed and dependent on this man for the rest of her life, no matter what he does. Because what if something were to happen in a relationship? What if he were to pass away? What if he were to abuse her? What if he goes broke? She should stay with that man because she didn't have any other options, and because she didn't
How can she stay with a man
have
who
any
passed away?
time.
How
What
can
did
she
she
stay
say?
with a man who passes away?
Besides that,
Or
you
why
can
did you
answer the
mention that? If you
question.
want, I'm gonna pick the most foolish statement you made out of the group.
Well, I mean, I
Like I
think you've
told you,
made a
what I'm
few
here to do
foolish
is refine
statements
you.
this
I
entire
make you a
time.
better
You keep trying to make
panelist
me a better
by
person, and I
targeting
think you
the
need to
foolishness
focus on that
you've
with your
made, the
wife to
statements
your
you make,
daughter.
by making
I
you better.
cannot
You can
refine you
retract
because you're not the type of man that I would pursue.
okay. So
You
you can.
can't make someone better when you have no context as to who that person is.
She
How can you
said,
make someone
did you hear
better?
her say, "What if he passed away?"
But what you're doing is you're
Yeah,
trying to
you're
nitpick for
picking and
something that
choosing
doesn't
instead of answering the
If
exactly,
you
instead
question.
of
give me
really
if you give
it's
me a
just like
plethora of
when you
statements,
say
I can choose
something.
whichever one I
Yeah,
want.